This summer, I decided to take up a new hobby, sewing. I'd been thinking about it for a while, how hard could it be? So I took the plunge and I bought a sewing machine on Facebook Marketplace. I realized I would need a few more items to get started. Fabric, of course, thread, and some other things that a Sewing Basics webpage instructed me on. A cutting mat and a rotary cutter, an iron, pins, and a seam ripper. I picked up the items and I was ready to roll. Before embarking on my sewing journey, I was a knitter. I'm always knitting, and every member of my extended family owns a cable knit sweater, a winter hat, or something else I've knit for them. So my confidence was pretty high when I set out to sew my first tote bag, and let's just say I was humbled immediately. As it turned out, I didn't even know how to thread the machine or sew in a straight line. Suddenly, I was a beginner, and it was scary. I had invested in these materials, told my family members to put in their clothing requests, and now I didn't even know how to start. It's easy to forget what it's like to be a beginner. Can you remember a time when you were a beginner? Maybe you tried something new recently, a new project, a new job, a new hobby, or maybe it was something from years ago. Can you recall what it felt like? What about something that you've done for so long you can't even remember what it was like to start? When someone asks me to teach them how to knit, it feels almost impossible to explain, to remember what information is needed to get started. The motion just comes naturally to me now. Like, it's so obvious, just do what I'm doing. But being a beginner, really starting from nothing, everything is completely unknown. Even how to hold the knitting needles or thread the sewing machine. In the beginning of everything, so the story goes, even God was a beginner. It's fun to imagine what it would have been like for God to create the whole universe. I imagine it was God's first time creating it. All that existed was tohu vavohu. Everything was unformed and void. Lots of materials, but it's not clear how to put them together. And there was Ruach Elohim, a divine wind, or perhaps a divine spirit, a divine inspiration, a spark of an idea and excitement to begin something. Was creation all planned out, or was God figuring it out on the go? Vayomer Elohim yehi or vayehi or. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov, and God saw that the light was good. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech, and so God separated the light from the darkness. Perhaps a kind of improvisation, starting from scratch as a beginner, with openness and seeing where things went. I wonder, was God nervous to begin creating the world? Was God excited, bursting with ideas? Was God maybe a little overconfident, thinking it would go more smoothly than it did? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Or perhaps we might understand it like, with a beginner's mind, God created the heavens and the earth. What is a beginner's mind? This concept, which comes from Zen Buddhism, is all about approaching things like a beginner, dropping your expectations and preconceived ideas, having a sense of openness, and seeing whatever it is you are doing with fresh eyes. The Suzuki Roshi, a Zen monk credited with helping to popularize Zen Buddhism in the United States, was quoted saying, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are very few. If your mind is empty, it's ready for anything. When I was a beginner at sewing, it was scary and overwhelming. But it allowed for some experiences that I don't often have when I'm doing something I feel like I'm an expert at. I allowed myself to make mistakes, to do full projects that didn't work and had to be thrown away. I allowed myself to ask questions, to seek out help and advice. And I leaned in more to creativity and curiosity. I had to find creative solutions to challenges that came up, and I felt excitement at learning each new skill. But what about in the areas where we are already experts? How might we hold on to this creativity, openness, and bravery in spaces where we don't typically see ourselves as beginners? God has some practice doing this as well. During our morning liturgy, we read, Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. In goodness, you renew the works of creation daily. Creation is an ongoing practice, becoming a beginner over and over again to renew these works. But with so much power and experience, how does God stay a beginner? Perhaps one way is through teaching us. Throughout the Torah, God is constantly teaching the people, and some here may feel that God teaches them in a personal way through the events of their lives. Teaching can be a way to see the perspective of the beginner, to make what is familiar to us feel new, and lean into more wonder and curiosity. Have you experienced a time when you were telling someone about a topic that you know a lot about or that you are even an expert in, and that person's response or questions allowed you to see the topic in a new way? I know for myself, I find this often as I am studying Torah with our B'nai Mitzvah students for them to write their Divrei Torah. The students never fail to help me notice new things and help me understand the story as if I am studying it for the first time. Learning with beginners is a wonderful way to harness a beginner's mind. Our tradition, too, has practices which we can lean into to individually see the familiar as new. The Jewish Musar value of hitlamdut is a mindfulness practice around learning. It refers to the ongoing process of learning how to learn. Hitlamdut instructs us to see ourselves as perpetual learners and beginners, even in the areas in which we already feel we have mastered, in our chosen fields or in other areas of our lives. What would it be like to bring a beginner's mind to reconsider how we cook our favorite recipes, how we get to work every morning, or how we interact with our family members? In some ways, each of us are experts at our own lives, the ins and outs of our days, the people we know and interact with, and the way we see the world. In this expertise, we can get stuck thinking about things in a single-minded way. Our tradition is rich with mindful practices that lead us towards making the mundane parts of our lives feel new. From the start of our day, we're taught to notice each small action we do and acknowledge it with a blessing of gratitude. In our daily morning blessings, Birkot HaShachar, we're taught, upon opening our eyes, we should bless the one who gives sight to the blind. When we get up, we should bless the one who lifts up the fallen. When we get dressed, we should bless the one who clothes the naked. These small moments of gratitude and awareness can help us practice looking at the small details we know well with fresh eyes and make them feel new and worthy of our attention. Rabbi Akiva, one of our great sages, is one of the most epic beginners in our tradition. Rabbi Akiva famously did not begin to study any Torah until he was 40 years old. The story goes that one day Akiva was standing at a well, and he asked someone, "Who carved the hole in this stone?" The person said to him, "It is from the water, which falls on it day after day." Akiva thought about this and applied it to himself. He said, "If something soft can carve something hard, then all the more so, the words of Torah which are like steel, can engrave themselves on my heart, which is but flesh and blood." He immediately went to start studying Torah. Rabbi Akiva was unafraid to begin learning something new into his adulthood. But perhaps more importantly, he knew that we humans are not set in stone even as we become adults. We have space to grow and the ability to open our minds and hearts to be beginners once again. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that everyone's first act of the new year should be to take on a new hobby. Rather, I want to suggest that we take the feelings that come with doing something new and apply them to doing something old, something we have mastered. Each of us can bring the beginner's perspective into our lives to cultivate more wonder, curiosity, and openness. It's not always easy. While one might be unafraid to ask questions or make mistakes on a new craft project, it can be much scarier to do so in a high-stakes situation or in a space where we feel we are supposed to be an expert. It takes bravery to set aside our expectations, to be open and look from a fresh perspective. In 5785, we are all beginners once again. We have never lived this year before, so we don't need to pretend that we have. May we approach this year with the mindset of a beginner, learning from others and being mindful to open ourselves to live with more curiosity. May we empty our minds so that they may be filled with new possibilities. May we be brave as we make the familiar new again in this new year. Shana Tova. We'll continue with a song. It goes like this. May I be empty and open to receive the light. Can you try that? May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be empty and open to receive the light. May I be empty and open to receive. May I be full. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be full. May I be full and open to receive the light. May I be full and open to receive. May I be empty. May I be empty and open to receive